All right. Can everybody see me? I am working on the best settings for my laptop so it doesn't overheat. But here we are. It is the Kaito birthday stream. I've been very excited for this for a while now. Okay. So I'm not sure if I should wait a little bit longer for people to kind of filter in. I did start a little bit late, but I want to have, people showing up so I can kind of explain what the stream layout is going to be. So, as I promised, this is a fan fiction live stream. Let me get this out of the way. Actually, where I will be doing dramatic readings of 3 fanfics. The first one being by Grayimperia from the Momota zine. The second one being Kaito Reads the Script by Lovova, and I see you in the chat already, hi. And the third one being a fic that a friend of mine, Aggressively Clueless, wrote for me for my birthday last year. So they are going to be roughly in chronological order of V3, and they're going to get roughly angstier as the stream goes on. So that's kind of the layout. All of them are rated teen and up audiences for canon typical gore and angst. So there's not much to worry about there. Let me actually check if there's any other tags that I should make note of. All 3 of them are angst. I thought, yesterday maybe I should add a fluffy fic to the rotation, but these 3 all kind of fit thematically, so whatever. If we do this again, maybe I'll find a fluff fic. But it was kind of difficult to find fics that really fit because these are all 3 very specifically tight third-person perspective on Kaito. Yeah, I saw your comment on them. They're also a pretty notorious angst and gore enjoyer, primarily for the Danny Phantom fandom. Yes. Alright, hello. Listen, okay. It was really hard to decide what order I was going to read these in, because they're all really good. So that's why I decided on chronological order. So I'm just going to get the lighting set up for the first one, since it's kind of a nighttime in the... Okay, perfect. Nighttime in the courtyard type situation. Thank you. They add to the ambiance, the lights and the wig, and the structural integrity. So let me find the first fic. I'm wondering if I should start maybe at 10 after, just to give everyone a chance to get in here. Because other than that, we're just celebrating Kaito's birthday. One of the most characters ever, in my opinion. I love this man so much. He deserves the best, and also the worst. And I think we can all agree on that. We all say we want the best for him, and then we do these kinds of things. Where is it? There's so many wonderful fics in this zine as well. And I was really kind of hoping the Luminary zine would be delivered by now, because I thought it'd be really cool to do a preview of the Kaito specific zine. But what happens happens. Maybe we'll have to do another one of these. Who knows? Correct. In my mind, Kaito is one of, if not the character ever. And it surprises me how many people agree. So I took him to a con last weekend, and I had a lot of people come up to me and say, wow, Kaito's my favorite character. I'm so excited to see you cosplay Kaito. I had several people who were just over the moon to see a Kaito cosplayer. So that was really, That was exciting to see. I'm not alone in my Kaito enjoyer-ness. I am trying to figure out if there's any other tabs I can close to cool us down. Maybe we'll lose some jackets as the night goes on. Who knows? Arguably, he didn't have one in the Exisal, so it's whatever. Alright, I am going to go ahead and get started. So this is What Evil People Do by Grayimperia. This is in the Momota zine that was mailed out in 2021. Message destroyed. Momota gets to training early. Harukawa and Saihara already know the spot, so he figures they'll join him when the evening sets in. But while he's alone, he takes a deep breath, hands behind his head, and summons the strength of his core to lift him in an experimental sit-up. His chest is tight, he can't breathe, and his experiment ends with him on his side gasping for breath. But at least there's no blood this time when he wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. With a breathy "fuck!" Momota lets himself collapse onto his back. He closes his eyes and lets air flow back into his lungs in deep, even breaths. It'll be hard to think of an excuse to just stay like this for their training hour, but the impossible has always been possible, so even when it comes to the worst things. So, what's it like inside a whale? Oma says. Momota jolts at the sound of his voice. His abrupt attempt to sit up spouts another wave of pain from the center of his chest, so he left partially seized on his back, staring up at Oma's face looming over him. What the fuck did you just... It's quickly apparent to Momota that this conversation isn't worth his dwindling energy. He presses the heels of his hands to his eyes as Oma will vanish if he can't see him. Don't you have someone else to harass? Yep, but you know I always make time for you. Oma plops down right by his head with the knees of his crossed legs nearly framing Momota's head. So, whale, tell me about that. The nearness of their bodies and the general vulnerability of being flat on his back make Momota shift away involuntarily. Another wave of pain surges from his chest, rolling up through him as another cough he hides in his hand. He doesn't feel any blood come out this time, but he still glances on his hand to check. Oma is still right above, and he smirks when their eyes meet. Whale in your throat. At the very least, Momota thinks, if Oma does catch him coughing up blood, no one will believe him. Just leave me alone, Momota says. And why do you keep talking about whales? I heard you telling Saihara-chan about your adventures riding the high seas this morning and was intrigued. I thought I should go to the source for more details. So, swallowed by a whale, huh? Unbelievable. Yeah, well, I've had some crazy adventures. Bzzzt, wrong. I meant unbelievable as in I literally don't believe it. As in, I think someone was telling. Oma leans forward, hovering his face inches away from Momota's. A lie. Momota grits his teeth, and it takes all of his willpower not to jerk away. He presses his hand to Oma's forehead, pushing him away. Stop being weird. Oma giggles. You first, because personally, I think it's quite weird to lie so blatantly and then complain about lies. Okay, first, you need to back up like another foot. Second, stop fucking listening in when I'm talking to Shuichi. And third of all, I wasn't lying. My rebuttal, Oma says, ticks off his fingers. First, absolutely not. Second, absolutely not. And third, you absolutely were. I wasn't. You were. I was not. Momota-chan, do you know why you're lying down? It's because you don't have a leg to stand on. Unless you actually want to tell me the story. Fine, Momota bites back. Oma's grin widens, and Momota realizes the impossible situation he was needled into agreeing to. What do you want from me? I just want you to know that you lied to poor, gullible Saihara-chan, and I want to know why. He's not the best at seeing through lies, you know, so you should be careful. Especially since he's placed so much trust in you. Momota remembers Saihara's nervous smile during their conversation, and the way he had laughed and suggested Momota take up writing. He knew Saihara understood his stories the same way Momota did, that they were real, and they happened to him, in his backyard with action figures and a soaring imagination. It was real in his heart, and whether or not he truly lived it through was irrelevant. But he finds it difficult to be so eloquent with his chest tight and Oma hovering so close. Maybe I exaggerate. Fine. But that doesn't matter, and Shuichi knows that. Besides, I think you don't actually give a shit. Ah, you got me. Oma clutches his heart and collapses onto his side, their faces now parallel. You're right. I really couldn't care less if you and Saihara-chan never talk to each other again, because I don't care about the whats, I care about the whys. And you know why I think you lied? Momota tells himself that whatever comes out of Oma's mouth is of no importance to him. And yet he asks, why? Because in my experience, people make up lies when they don't want to talk about themselves. He hovers an accusatory finger inches away from Momota's nose, which is very strange in your case because I pegged you as the type who can't shut up about yourself. Momota bats his hand away. You do the same thing with your evil organization bullshit. Yup, and a con always recognizes a con, Oma sighs dreamily. And that's why I'm drawn to you and your filthy lies. Anger swells in his chest. Momota has never believed in swallowing his feelings. Sure, there were some things that should be kept close to his chest, but hiding emotion for the sake of hiding was not strength. But the vice-like pain that followed him daily now makes it physically painful to be angry, and he's left with few other options than to squirm and push Oma's face away. I'm not a liar. That's what they all say. So are you a liar who only tells the truth, or a liar who only tells lies? Momota has no idea what Oma's talking about, and he isn't sure Oma does either when he begins to ramble like this. Stop accusing everyone of being a liar because you're a paranoid freak who thinks everyone is out to get you. Everyone is out to get me. Why, just this morning there were 5 attempts on my life that I had to fend off. Oma grabs Momota's hand, pressing it against his face by the wrist. Instead of shoving it away like Momota assumed he would, Oma runs his fingertips across Momota's palm. The gentleness of his touch tickles and sends a jolt up Momota's spine. He jerks his hand back and decides the swell of pain was worth it. Oma keeps smiling. There's no need to be so defensive, Oma says. I called you a liar, but I never said there was anything wrong with that. But you know what I think is wrong? And he leers over him again, making Momota swallow. Cornering someone and dragging the truth out of them against their will. That's something only an evil person would do. Oma's smile grows demented, and Momota knows he can't take whatever is happening anymore. He snaps up into a sitting position, his forehead colliding with Oma's on the way up. The pain is so intense, his breath catches, and he's left gasping for a few seconds as all the air punches its way out of his ravaged lungs. At the very least, his little stunt knocks Oma to the ground. He rubs his forehead, whining, Momota-chan, that was really mean. The urge to yell at Oma is a focal point in Momota's ability to rally around, to get himself back in control. With a deep breath, he twists around. Whatever malice has laced Oma's earlier speech isn't present on his face, and it's so much less satisfying to shout at this bratty pout than the evil image he'd crafted moments before. Would you get the fuck out of my face? Oma places his hands on his hips and juts his lower lip out even further. No, because I have a point to prove. Well, I'm not listening. I know you aren't, but you should, because I think you'll actually like what I have to say. Momota looks him over. For all he credits himself on being able to read people, Oma has always been something of a question mark. He didn't believe Oma was actually dangerous, but the sheer willingness to lie, and the honesty over proclaiming it, threw him for a loop. Momota thinks maybe it's time he could read between the lines of Oma's words, but currently all he has are the actions. All the actions that have been to get in his personal space and question him relentlessly. So Momota says, I don't like anything you've been doing. Today, or in general? Both, but especially right now. I know. No one likes it. He cups a hand around his mouth, stage whispering, it's to prove a point. Get in someone's face and force the truth out of them? Momota chokes on his words for a second, and he hides his cough in his hand just in case Oma's watching him, and Momota notices he isn't smiling anymore. I think detectives are just awful, sticking their noses in truths that don't belong to them, Oma says. Airing people's dirty secrets is the worst! Don't you think it's cruel to force people to give up lies and make them happy? Momota coughs again. I don't lie to myself. Does it make you happy to think that? There's no blood on his hand, but Momota knows Oma has witnessed the whole thing. It'd make me happy to pretend this conversation never happened. Oma's eyes flick over him for a final time before he jumps to his feet. Well, if that's what makes you happy, who am I to refuse it? Oma bounces off, and Momota thinks that even if he had the time, he still might not understand him. The thought makes him freeze. Momota cradles his head in his hands because it's not true that he doesn't have time. It's absolutely not true. He stiffens further, trying not to let anything Oma said just sink in any further into his mind. Sitting alone, Momota presses a hand to the forming bruise on his forehead. Saihara and Harukawa do sit-ups during training, and Momota lays on his back. The pain in his chest is now a constant hum, and his head is full of Oma's face looking down on him. His hands drift to rub his forehead, and Saihara glances over. Did you hit your head, Momota-kun? Momota thinks he could tell the whole story. Him lying in the grass, trying his damnedest not to die, and Oma rattling off riddle after riddle. Saihara and Hawakawa would probably tell him that's just how Oma is and he shouldn't pay it any attention, because really, why does he let that brat get under his skin all the time? Why can't he put it out of his mind? Momota turns so his words are only addressed to the sky. I don't know. I can't remember. Harukawa asks him if he hit his head so hard he can't remember how this injury happened. Saihara theorizes it's just one of those little bruises everyone gets as they go about their lives. Momota decides there's nothing wrong with keeping a little secret or two if there's no malice behind them. And he says, Hey, Harumaki, I told Shuichi this earlier, but did I ever tell you about the time I met a whale? Harukawa rolls her eyes and Saihara forces a smile, and Momota wishes, however briefly, that his friends were as good at playing along as the person who left the handprint on his head. And that is the fic. Whew. That was already kind of a doozy. And I didn't even get that. I just love, personally, how much emotion grayimperia can put into their works and how well they're able to characterize all the different characters in Danganronpa. Because I don't know how many of you have read their other work, I'd Trade My Life for Yours. I've read that one twice despite it being 400,000 words, and it's just so good every time. There is an art to understanding these characters because they're just... The way V3 is written is there's so much, content that's hinted at by the writer that is never fully explored. So there's a lot of, content for fans to work with. It's really interesting how it evolved like that. I don't know. That's part of why I love this fandom so much, is because the fans have been given so much to work with, and they've really showed it. They've really just, I don't know, I would say the Danganronpa's really gone off with this one. The Danganronpa fandom's really gone off. Oh my god. Are you talking about printing I'd trade my life for yours? Honestly, if Grayimperia ever decided to sell, like, bound books, or maybe not sell because of weird, like, copyright things, but if Grayimperia ever opened up a Ko-fi, I would not hesitate. That, as far as I'm concerned, I'd trade my life for yours as canon. And I've heard a friend of mine is looking into bookbinding. Is that the... Yes, that is the Kaito fic I sent to you and Spooky. I'm just saying, it's very good. Grayimperia really understands, like, puts a really interesting spin on Kaede in that one, and I won't get into too many details because it's something you should read for yourself, even though it's a pretty long haul. But also, I really like the different relationships they explore that we didn't get a chance to explore in V3. So since it is like an alternate timeline, more characters get the limelight. Yeah, is that so? Bookbinding? Let me just, like, rehydrate, because I recognize this is going to be a lot of talking. This is interesting because it's very different from a panel. It's... because I'm the only one really doing any talking. This feels kind of like a panel, but it's all about Kaito, because it's Kaito's birthday. That's what it's all about, baby. Every so often, I, like, try to get back into fic writing. But it's such an interesting skill set. And especially because there are so many talented writers in the Danganronpa community already, it's like, I feel like I have a lot to measure up to. I did kind of luck out in the cosplay department because there were maybe 2 Kaito cosplayers I could find when I had, like, made this cosplay originally, so I had a lot of space to grow, you know. And now there are more and more Kaito cosplayers coming into the scene, and I'm able to give them tips, and it's so cool. I could probably write a whole essay on just fandom culture in general, and how it's so... I love how collaborative it is. That's something you don't get with original fiction and original art and original characters. We, like, can't necessarily collaborate because of, you know, ownership type things. Ugh. But, like, with fan content, you can build off of each other almost like a yes and. And I know that's something Tumblr specifically specializes in, and I know all of you are on Tumblr, so you guys know what's up. But, that's something that I think isn't explored enough in modern, like, content creation, especially because so many, like, creators, I say creators, but I mean the Marvel Cinematic Universe, try to keep things under wraps until it's done because they want to keep it in one encapsulated packet. It's kind of fun to have it sprawling, like Homestuck and, like, Welcome Home is kind of being right now. I don't know. I'll write the essay later because it's not coming to me live on camera. But yeah, short version, fandom means a lot to me. Alright, the next one I'm reading is called Kaito Reads the Script, and conveniently I brought out the prop I usually use for the script because it's red. It's actually just my aerodynamics textbook, but it works. And I think it's kind of funny. But this fic is by Lovova, who is in the chat. And this was the fic that actually gave me the idea to do this stream, because I was reading through it, and I thought, man, this would be so much fun to act out, because it is... Wait a... Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, hold on. Hold on. So I printed this at the library, and I didn't look through it before this, and I don't know how many duplicate pages I have in here, because the printer was having kind of a conniption, and I was standing behind someone who was doing his taxes, and I was waiting, you know, for his print to be done so I could grab mine, and I was like worried because he didn't know how long his print was, and I was like, oh my god, he's going to be grabbing for his taxes, and he's going to get a Danganronpa fanfic in his hands at the public library. I think... Okay. I think we have all the pages. Yes, just aerodynamics. Don't worry about it. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard in the past reading, but I did stumble over some grammar, so even if your grammar is perfect, I will ruin it. So, this is a team effort on ruining these fics. But yes, time for Kaito to read the script. Is there any important tags? Kaito is fine and then has a mental breakdown, so that's what we're in for. The summary. Kaito's got some time to kill before the next trial, and Kokichi wrote him this whole script anyway. Kaito should probably read it at some point, when he has a minute in between panic attacks. It'd make Kokichi happy. Or at least less mad at him. Oh, this was also written for Momota Week. So there's kind of a theme going on here, even though I know the Momota fandom kind of just puts these two in situations, whether it's a ship dynamic or not. Wait, hold on. I got some lights. I can change some lights. We can make this darker and gloomier. Right. Okay, the ending where everyone's happy and everyone lives. That's how this stream is ending. Yes? Yes. Glad we're all on the same page. So, that just happened. He guessed. Kaito sat in the exisal, face lined with sweat, staring at nothing. The exisal, for all intents and purposes, had to appear to be entirely off if someone came across it. In case someone stumbled upon it and thought to themselves, hey, a murderer could totally hide in there. Cramped and uncomfortable, sure. Suffocating on the scent of his and his victim's blood, sure. But he could. Let's open up that bad boy and check, huh? Just in case. That'd be a bummer way to make everything he and Kokichi did entirely meaningless. So, after locking himself inside, Kaito had given the controls a long look, and after carefully checking the inner casing design of the machine, making a few rational guesses as to what button would lead to what function of the machine based on case sizing, had put it to sleep mode, essentially. Turning everything off with the exception of a small red emergency light that shone directly behind him, just higher than his head. What's purple? Let's change that to red, actually. There we go. Now we're in the exisal. And job done. Nothing else to do to ensure that it all wasn't about to be ruined by a pair of wandering eyes and an electric hammer. Kaito just had to sit there and stare at the darkness for a while. His rasping breaths loud in his own ears, occasionally tapping at the book in his lap fitfully. Tap, tap. Little reassuring sounds to remind him that he was still here. that this was still real. Had that just happened? It occurred to Kaito that it couldn't have. After all of that, it had been too insane. Like, things that didn't happen, not in real life. Kaito had just spent 3 days trapped in a bathroom, quietly wheezing and hacking and dying, more bored out of his mind than anything. And then everything at once. Everything at once. Everything at once. Everything at... He was supposed to be doing something, wasn't he? Other than squishing Kokichi. Kaito felt a wave of nausea run through him, eyes widening slightly in the darkness. Sweat started to pick up again as his breathing became more labored. The ever-present pain in his throat, wanting him to just cough. Again, soon. Stay calm. Stay calm. You only squished your friend a little bit. Only a little. Only entirely flat, and he exploded. He exploded. It happened all at once. I'm supposed to read the script, Kaito murmured out loud to himself, blinking slowly at the red-tinted void. There was the black screen in front of him. Blinking as his eyes adjusted, and he realized he could see his own red-tinted silhouette in the dark mirroring of the black screen. The next part of the plan. The next part of the plan! Kaito suddenly shouted, a wide grin splitting his face in two. Literally, he felt like his head was going to flop backwards like a Sesame Street puppet. He could imagine it so vividly. His eyes wide and unseeing, head flapping urgently as high, squeaky voice he told the kids at home, "Are you ready? The luminary of the stars says it's time to learn the 1, 2, 3s of getting away with murder! Yay! Let's go!" He laughed a little at that mental image. Some of the building hysteria waned a little as he opened up the script to page 1. And frowned as he saw Ryoma's name. Kaito warily read Kokichi's step-by-step plan for Ryoma to commit suicide. "Should you accept this dire mission, Ryoma-chan, and save all of our lives while also ending the game?" But to stage it like it was a murder, leaving indisputable evidence behind that Kokichi had done it. That's when I'm allowed to go free, I can go get help, but leave behind my own evidence for them to find that your murder was actually a suicide. That way they'll know, 1, Monokuma can be tricked and the trials can be rigged, and 2, they'll be so inspired by your sacrifice that none of them will be able to bring themselves to be the first actual murderer. Kaito skipped ahead a few pages and realized Kokichi wrote this back in the first days they had gotten here. A plan for how to deal with the time limit in a way that would allow Kokichi to escape to get help, at the same time exposing Monokuma as a sham. Not to mention using Ryoma to guilt the rest of the students into ignoring the future motives in his name. All it took, apparently, was Ryoma agreeing to strangle himself. Fucking asshole, Kaito growled, flipping through the pages as he saw Kokichi draw out specs for some sort of tracker for Miu to make, so he could find the dome once again once he was free. That was what you were working on these days? Fuck. I was asking everyone for help and ideas. Why didn't you fucking talk it out with me? We could have figured something out that didn't result in Ryoma dying, jackass. Except Kokichi had talked out a plan with Kaito. And now Kokichi was everywhere. All over the floor, on his pants, on his slippers. Kokichi was all over him. Calm. Calm, breathe, Kaito. The next plan, Kaito recognized. Using Gonta's love for Bucks to kidnap the other classmates for the bug meet and greet. This would at least allow Kokichi to steal the loved one's motive videos. Kaito kept reading, and, well, at least this one didn't have someone dying, and that wasn't the expectation for the plan to work. Though, Kaito felt his stomach tighten with alarm as he saw the step-by-step instructions from Maki this time. How she was going to help Kokichi kidnap the foes most likely commit murder to save the loved one, and keep them hidden and alive, separate from the others, who would want to free them too early. You know how to keep helpless little idiots alive, and you have a fuck everyone else attitude that would be perfect for a prison warden. You were born for this role, Maki! Then, at some point, in a different pen ink, Kokichi had written on the side, "Lol, nope, she's an assassin, R.I.P. all of us, I guess." More and more plans like that, as each motive was announced. Some motives had multiple plans put in place. Some of the plans stopping mid-structure as Kokichi wrote in a new bit of information he learned that meant it wasn't going to work. And she's too much of a megalomaniac to work with, and besides, the cult might actually work? Best to just step back and see how this plays out. Tenko would make a half-decent accomplice. She's surprisingly hard to trick, but her bias basically makes her worthless to all future plans. She'll never cooperate. Korekiyo feels like a murder just waiting to happen. This guy's basically bragging about it every time I talk to him. And he's got this whole sister-based judgment system on the girls he's always referencing. Probably best I keep an eye on him. Maybe I can stop it in the act? Kaito raised an eyebrow at the question marks, noting that the page went more and more of Kokichi's plans seemed less geared toward talking to a potential accomplice, and him more talking to himself. His writing became more unhinged and uncertain as the days went on. One page looked like it had been written out and then scratched over entirely by rough markings of a blue pen, Kokichi furious at whatever he was written in there before. Kaito wondered what it was, till he turned the page and saw, "Nope, won't work, there's no fucking planet to go back to, moron!" Kaito scowled. Looks like they were getting closer to what he imagined would be a Gontan/Miyu plan. Reading about Kokichi's other failed plans to try to stop the murders that had made him almost forget for a minute that Kokichi was more than happy to set up other people's murders to further his own goals. Fucking hypocrite. None of these plans ever had him dirty his own hands, Kaito had noticed. It was always someone else doing the hard work. Like, taking advantage of other people's weaknesses detached him from the things he had to do, somehow. Fucker. Fucking fucker! Fucking asshole! Why did you do this? Why did you do this? This is what? Kaito's eyes had gone wide again, and his breathing sounded hysterical even to his own ears as he panted. Unable to see the writing anymore because his vision had dilated to the point of whiting out, the fear and panic rushing through him all at once. He'd killed Kokichi. He watched him fucking explode and had to walk through the blood. He was covered in it everywhere, was covered in it, smeared all over the floor, splattering the bathroom and on Kaito's clothes and on his hands. Fuck! Kaito wrapped his arms around his chest and tried desperately to breathe. Breathe, dumbass. You have to... Kaito coughed into the book, barely able to breathe as his chest rattled and shook and his lungs trying to expel themselves out of his body. For a second, he felt like he was choking, like he was drowning, and the blood dislodged itself from building pressure in his throat, and he hacked the blood onto the page he had been reading. Blinking tearily as his body started to calm down just a little, staring at the words as they came into focus. The world can't be gone. This death game is being recorded. The recording is going to an audience somewhere. The world being destroyed is fake. It's all fake. The audience has grown bored with us. We have to end the game. At all costs. It's the only way. Shuichi. Kaito panted, blinking tiredly, before laughing a little through his bloody teeth. Was Shuichi the next accomplice, Kokichi? Man, I chased you all over the damn school trying to talk to you, and I was really the very last person you ever thought of working with, huh? Fucking asshole. Again, there was something incredibly calming about laughing at the situation. Kaito chuckled some more to himself, blood dripping down his chin as he read more, turning the next page. Yep, Shuichi was the next one. Shuichi and Gonta. Kokichi, realizing Miyu was planning to kill him next, planned out Gonta's murder of her beforehand, right down to the toilet paper, while also having a long list of items he intended to have her make before she died. Kaito thought that was particularly fucked up. Kokichi getting his full use out of her before her planned strangulation. Kokichi and Miyu. Kaito spat some blood onto the side of the exisal, the bitter taste matching his feelings. Those two idiots, if they had just agreed to work with everyone else. Damn it. All of that had happened as planned, but apparently another part of the plan had been to have Shuichi work with Kokichi to split the vote. To make it impossible for the class to decide if Kokichi had done it or if Gonta had done it, and to use their sympathy for Gonta and fear of getting it wrong to pressure them into not voting at all. The audience won't want to watch us all get gunned down at once without ever knowing who did it. I'm certain of it. That'd be boring. I'm calling Monokuma's bluff. He won't do it. Kaito wondered what happened to this plan before realizing, obviously. Shuichi hadn't so much as indulged Kokichi's attempt to draw him into his plan. Kaito had known Kokichi was trying to isolate Shuichi from Kaito, and now he guessed he knew why. Kokichi probably thought if Shuichi didn't have Kaito for support, he'd turn to Kokichi in the same way he had turned to Kaito when Kaede had died, and to Maki when Kaito had been too sick and freaked out to help in the third trial. Kokichi had someone who needed a partner to function, and thought isolating Shuichi would make Kokichi a prime candidate. Kaito suddenly felt an overwhelming sadness at that. Kokichi was so naive, and he had died before he could ever get a chance to understand. Kaito had killed before Kokichi ever had a chance to understand people. Kokichi was so good at reading people, but he didn't understand them. Probably to the bitter end, he hadn't understood why Shuichi hadn't chosen him, even when Kaito had barely been able to look at Shuichi without being furious and hurt, let alone support him. Why the isolated detective hadn't seen Kaito fall apart and just immediately gone running to the next person with all the answers. People aren't static, Kokichi. Kaito told the pages quietly, flipping through the pages sadly as Kokichi predicted, entirely wrong, that what Shuichi would do the more Kokichi isolated him from Kaito. Fuck, man, you can't make a whole plan based on people's fucking stereotypes. Man, you really made a whole plan based on the detective will always be logical, huh? Like Shuichi would inevitably pick you over me. Just because you had the answers and I didn't? Because he was smart and picking you was the smart choice. You're always forgetting he's just a person, Kokichi. You're always forgetting we're just people. Kaito paused, and in a morbid way, he realized he was pausing to give Kokichi a chance to respond. His hands trembling as he sat in silence, listening for him. Kaito didn't believe in ghosts, but fuck, for a second he really felt like he was trying to explain it to Kokichi. Like the guy was listening, as Kaito just shrugged tiredly. He picked me because I made him feel cared about, Kokichi. That's what it was, man. That's all it took. You want your surefire accomplice? You should have just let him know you care about him. You didn't need to do all this shit to isolate him and gaslight him, or me for that matter, you dick. I'd have worked with you too. You just needed to show me you cared about anything at all. A little. What the hell did you ever accomplish, pretending to be so damn above it all? It didn't matter if you literally had all the answers. Your attitude about the murders just made them too repulsed to work with you. Between us, he wanted to trust me over you, Kaito whispered. So he did. That's all the logic there was to it, Kokichi. Why did you expect anything else? Another long pause, waiting for a response, trying to imagine what Kokichi might have said. said Kokichi, that strange unnatural smile splitting Kaito's face again. Him just liking someone enough to reject logic didn't save poor Gonta. Now did it, Kai-chan? Kokichi! Kaito flinched, gritting his teeth. Knock it off. That's not fucking fair, man. As Kaito stared unseeingly down at the specks of the electro bombs, script gripped painfully in hands as he dug his thumbnails into a page. Kokichi said, with all his little giggles and tonal inflections, oh, and I'm the naive one? That's rich, Kaito. You're the one who's going to spend the whole trial thinking if you could just remind Shuichi that he likes Gonta and doesn't like me. that somehow that'd say poor Gonta's stupid, worthless life. Like somehow that'd make it so the impossible really was possible, and Gonta's hands weren't the ones that strangled the stupid whore Miu. You bet all of our lives on it, Kaito. Show some respect, man. They're both fucking gone. Stop fucking insulting them. And Gonta wasn't worthless, and Miu was only kinda stupid. Kokichi cackled. Kaito's throat stung as he flicked some hair out of his eyes, smirking darkly at Kaito's red silhouetted reflection as the dark mirror in front of him. Wow, Kaito. Even you can't find a nice thing to say about Miu now that she's dead and gone, huh? You have to admit, for all the people I set up to die, no one was exactly weeping over that mean, cocky disgrace for a human being. Gonta did, Kaito muttered, unable to meet the eyes staring back at him in the reflection, his gaze hovering slightly to the left ear instead. He wept, man. How could you watch him cry like that and feel nothing? Kaito, Kokichi said, his expression blank, eyes just wide and searching. I made you kill me, in the most horrific way you can think of, a few days later, so that everyone who died can rest in peace. Do you really think I felt nothing? Kokichi asked. Do you feel something? Kokichi smiled. And Kaito whimpered. He whimpered with his whole body, curling around the book as he clutched it to himself, unable to look at the reflection as pathetic keening noise escaped him, a whine from deep within his throat as tears suddenly spilled down his cheeks. Kokichi, why? Why did this happen? Why did you do this to us? Why did you do this to me? I didn't want this, damn you! Kokichi didn't say anything to that. Just watched dispassionately as Kaito bent his body forward, curled around his book as he leapt against his knees. Grief and horror rocking through him as he wailed. He didn't want all of this to have happened. He didn't want to have killed Kokichi. He didn't want Kokichi to be dead and Gonta to be dead and everyone else to be dead, and he wanted to go home. Why had all this happened? He was going to be an astronaut. He felt his lungs give him warnings that his wailing was going to start another coughing fit, but Kaito ignored him, weeping and sobbing into his legs, just wanting all of this to stop, until finally his lungs insisted that he quieted down, coughing and hacking into his knees until Kaito felt dizzy, swallowing iron and vomiting blood, spots in his vision as he eventually straightened up. He looked at his reflection and saw himself again in the darkness. Saw even in the silhouette how haggard he looked, how defeated. He was dying. Kaito could feel it. I'm not going to make it, Kokichi, Kaito murmured, blinking tiredly at himself. Is that why you didn't want to work with me? Because I'm sick? I'm so tired, Kokichi. Maybe you should have tried harder with Shuichi. I'm so tired. Yeah, well, Kokichi shrugged somewhere in Kaito's head, unimpressed. Before you go and die on me, could you at least read the plan? Do that much, Space Case. I literally already died for this plan. So any amount of effort on your part would be so appreciated, okay? Thank you. Open your eyes, Kaito! Kaito opened his eyes with a little gasp. Had he fallen asleep? Passed out? Literally just closed them for a moment? He didn't know, but he had to read the plan. Kaito looked down at the book and realized he was already on the correct page. He knew because the handwriting was sloppier. Kokichi literally writing this out as Kaito set up and double-checked the camera angle. Kokichi getting down as quickly as he could. All he knew, because he immediately noticed the word astronaut, and assumed it wasn't a typo. All right, astronaut. First things first. I know my blood must be just fascinating to gawk at, but pull it together. You have to go to the exosol and hide in it, and most importantly, you have to put it in sleep mode. Here's how you... Kaito rolled his eyes. As Kokichi gave him step-by-step instructions on the process he had worked himself out just fine, barely thinking about it. Kokichi really had no faith in his intelligence. I told you, man, I'm not an idiot, Kaito muttered as he continued reading how the exosome moved and the voice changer and how Kokichi wasn't going to tell him how the weapons worked because that was just asking Kaito to accidentally blow a hole open in one of the others by accident. Though, if you gotta accidentally kill one of your friends, aim for no balls, i.e. Kibo. He's my #1 for mastermind choice right now, seriously. He's a robot. He was practically built specifically for this game. Robophobic, Kaito chuckled, though he could entirely see Kokichi's point. He liked to think if Kibo was the mastermind, though the poor guy probably didn't know it. He'd always seemed sincere to Kaito. Then he kept reading. Again, a lot of the notes were obvious. Don't forget to use Maki as a red herring to give Shuichi a chance to prove it wasn't her, then really focus on the switcheroo stuff. Show the murder video early, as soon as Kaito could, to put suspicion on Kaito. Remember, it's not enough to just have them say it was me and have it actually be you. We have to have Monokuma visually uncertain who it was, right up until the very end. It has to be obvious he guessed, when he guesses wrong, which means both of us have to be equally likely suspects by the end. Got it, Kaito frowned, as pretty quickly the note stopped being about the case and more about Kokichi's mannerisms. How to handle the other students as Kokichi. Every time Maki gets too ready to murder me, switch to you. It'll keep her off balance. Kibo came to try to talk to me yesterday. If he's smart, he'll try to trap you by asking you the questions about the conversation. Here's exactly how it went. Samugi's always a non-factor in the trials. Don't worry about her even if she starts to catch on. Her last valid point was maybe a ghost did it. Her arguments are always garbage. If you recognize any of her anime references, and you're me, remind her that she's a useless weeb trash for me. I'd love for that to be my last words for her. Heart emoji. Dude, seriously? Heart emojis when you're dying? If Himiko starts giving you any trouble, just suggest that I have a crush on her. Don't do it as yourself. Makiro and Shumai would mutually destroy her. Angie made her useless using the same gimmick. She's easily knocked off her game by that, but only mention it once and then never again, or she'll actually think it through and resent the attention, like we saw with Tenko. Affection, but aloof. Got it? Kaito rolled his eyes at the comment about Maki and Shuichi. Damn it. Kokichi, always messing around. Though once again, he just felt sad. Kokichi put, I don't know what you should say to Shuichi. Nothing I try ever works on him. He's probably just going to be the one to ruin all of this. Just try to keep the truth from him as long as you can. Finally, if Monokuma tries to psych you out by threatening to kill everyone if he guesses wrong. Kaito blinked, eyes blurringly assuring him that yes, the sentence did just end there. Kaito flipped the page, brow furrowed, flipped a few more pages. Nothing? Not even a last request? A last message to Kaito? No last words? Just Kokichi either running out of time or just realizing he didn't know what to do about Monokuma threatening to kill everyone. Just leaving it blank with no advice to give, leaving Kaito to figure it out. Just the worst case scenario, and then silence. Feeling oddly empty, let down, Kaito closed the book, holding it to his stomach as he stared at his reflection. No last words? How does someone write all of that before they're going to die and not bother to write out some last message to the universe? How had Kokichi been willing to die that way? At least I wasn't boring, right? At least I wasn't boring, right? Kokichi said again, staring back at Kaito. Kaito? Kokichi said to him, looking tired and sick and dying in the glass. Right? At least I wasn't boring. No, man, fuck. You weren't boring, Kaito answered back, his eyes blurring once again. God, he had cried so much in the last few weeks. Kaede's execution had started the waterworks, and it was like Kaito couldn't stop ever since. He was so tired of crying. Oh, I wish you had been. I wish you had been boring. Oh, you were fun, Kaito told Kokichi, his heart sinking as he held the book. In your own shitty sort of way. Man, in different circumstances, with your antics and your speed, fuck that shitty, brilliant, stupid fucking brain of yours. I could see a version of myself that viewed you as a rival. To want to outrun you, outthink you, to combat your shitty plans, the hero to your villain, you know? You seem to love playing at being the villain. Shame I didn't make a better hero. I guess. Maybe a better hero could have stopped all this. I wanted you to come work out with Makiro and Shuichi and me, Kaito confessed. I could never get you to sit long enough to ask, though. Always ended up bickering with you, even though when we did talk. Did you know I was trying to ask, and that's why you wouldn't let me get a damn word in edgewise? Why not? You were like Shuichi and Maki. You needed the friends, man. You needed the courage to rely on other people. Why were you so convinced you were in this alone? You and your hapless accomplices. I didn't want you to die, Kaito murmured. You were Makiro. I didn't want you to die, and I didn't want her executed. So fucking stubborn, both of you. Why were you both so determined to destroy each other? Did you really have to make personal enemies out of the recovering assassin, Kokichi? Don't look at me like that. Yes, recovering. I was going to talk her out of that awful career eventually. She was going to be an ultimate, literally anything else. Maybe ultimate fighter. You don't have to kill people to have kick-ass fights with them worthy of being ultimate. Kaito suddenly snickered. Ultimate crossbow shooter. Too dark? Too soon? Kokichi giggled. How morbid, Kai-chan. If you make that joke to her face, definitely do it in my voice. I want credit for that one. Yeah, Kaito smiled fondly at the reflection. Something in him was finally starting to relax a little. Is it tough being dead, Kokichi? Kokichi hummed like he was thinking about it, interrupted by a sudden coughing fit. Kaito's throat not liking the humming. Would you believe me, whatever I said? I am a liar after all. Yeah, Kaito said softly. I'm literally about to die. Putting my faith in a plan you came up with, Keech. Might as well go all in and say I believe you, regardless of what you say next. Okay, then it's all full of rainbows and unicorns, and I'm on a flying cotton candy cloud, and I'm currently in the middle of devouring Kaito. Aren't you just excited to join me? It's not that hard, Kokichi finally said. It's scary, especially when you're going. But the being dead part, Kaito? No, it's not hard. I'm okay. You'll be okay too. Kaito swallowed at that. A few more heavy, rolling tears spilling down his cheeks, but he nodded. Okay, I believe you. You come meet up with me when I go. I'm scared, man. I don't want to give that fucking bear the satisfaction of knowing I'm scared, but I am. Will you come pick me up? Kokichi was silent for a while. Kaito, uncertain what he would say in this situation. Before deciding, Kokichi would probably just lie. Yeah, I'll be there, Kaito. Waiting for you to tell me all the ways you messed up on my super cool, 100% idiot-proof plan. Shut up, man. I'm gonna knock this damn play out of the park. And this whole game once and for all, Kaito said, blinking hard. He was tired, but he was going to fall asleep soon, and this time, when he woke up, it was probably going to be trial time. Everything, everything happening again. Long periods of silence and being trapped, and then everything happening all at once, and then long periods of silence again. Stay with me until I fall asleep, Kokichi, Kaito whispered softly. I promise I'll be ready when we start, but I'm so tired. Sure, Kaito. Big man Momota needs someone to hold him till he goes to sleep. Kokichi giggled through the reflection as Kaito gripped the book tighter, blinking slower. So needy. Pathetic. But sure, why not? I'll stay. Chase away all the scary dreams in Kai-chan's dopey, ugly head. Fuck you, man, I know I'm handsome. Kaito chuckled, closing his eyes. Why? Your mom tell you so? Jackass, always messing around, Kaito smirked, his eyes feeling heavy. Shut up and let a guy sleep. Okie dokie, Kokichi whispered, sitting on the very verge of sleep. Good night, Kaito. Night, man. If I slump any lower, I'll just crack my neck. That is... whew, almost 5,000 words of angst goodness. All right, let me just... and scene. Let me catch up on what you guys were saying, because I couldn't look at the chat once while I was reading. I was a little bit too into it. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. Fun fact, it was actually the Muppet section that made me go, oh, I've got to read this one live. The one where he's just like, let's learn how to get away with murder, yay! Oh, that one really got me. That's reader's notes. That was the paragraph. Oh my gosh. I got nothing to say, man. Fic speaks for itself. Fucking high art. You have such a way with words, and you use them to hurt me. Maybe it's just I need to breathe for a second. See, you guys get it. Unhinged Muppet was the best bit. I feel like people try to downplay Kaito's, like, anger. Because for a lot of people, that's why they don't like Kaito, is because he gets, you know, he punched a lot of people, and that's not great. That's not a great way to be. So I understand why people have kind of an ick for him, because there were a couple places in the game itself where he let the anger get the better of him to kind of disastrous consequences. So either people just don't like him or they kind of downplayed the anger because, you know, it's a little bit uncomfortable to work with, but I'm glad you kind of included it so I could, like, include it myself. Not to be a Kinney on YouTube, I guess, but part of the reason I really kind of glommed onto Kaito is because I did used to also have anger issues. I have sensory issues, and I've talked about this before on basically all of my platforms. I have sensory issues, and when I was young, I didn't know how to deal with them. So I did hurt some people, and then I got sent to therapy, and now I have better coping mechanisms for when I get overloaded. But I could see, you know, a lot of myself in Kaito, not being able to regulate my emotions. Yeah. I'm like, gotta just breathe and cool down a little bit. It's very hot today, I think I mentioned. But yeah, I don't know. Kaito, my beloved. I would say let the man punch people, but I also like rehabilitating Kaito. Get some better coping mechanisms. Maybe go to therapy. See, the other option, if we didn't, like, give him lots of problems and then kill him at the end, is he'd have to go to therapy. And how much fun is that? It's actually a lot of fun. Honestly, I kind of like post-game fics because it's such an interesting exploration of Kaito, because he, you know, through the game, he gave his all, he gave his life, and he had to, like, be resigned to the fact that he was dying because he could see it coming for weeks. And just the idea of him, like, waking up in a VR AU is just like, how do you deal with that? So that's my sales pitch for Nobody Died, Everybody Lived, because there's more angst. Like, there's enough angst already when they die, but you can keep it going. Also, yeah, I do want to make a note. Heed tags, heed warnings. I know pretty much everyone who's been talking in the chat knows about how fic tags work. Do read them, because I know in particular, I don't think Grayimperia has written very dark stuff, but you other two, tags are your best friends. We love vivisection and dismemberment, and a whole host of other things. Okay, I'm hearing more ideas for more angst. I love that. I love that for all of us. Like I said, one day I'll do like a fluff stream or something, because Kaito deserves the best, but he also deserves the worst. He deserves both sides of the same coin. I don't know if you guys saw, because not all of you were following me on Tumblr when I posted this, but there was like basically a D&D sheet, but for your Blorbo, and you like could check boxes of what things you want for your Blorbo Bleebus. And there's like, I want this character to have a better time, I want them to have a worse time, I want them to have more partners, less partners. I want them to live, I want them to die, and I just basically checked all of the boxes because I want everything for Kaito. I want it all. Okay, so I've told multiple of you about the dismemberment fic. I think that was Rev Eerie that did that one. Very good fic. Very good post-game fic. Kaito survives and it's a bad time. 10 out of 10. I'm trying to like catch up on what you guys are saying. What if the suffering never stops? Correct. He gets like 3 collective days of having an okay time. And then it all goes downhill from there. I'm so glad you enjoyed watching me read your fic. I'm first of all, thank you for writing. It's always a treat. I just enjoy. And this goes back to my talk about like fandom. I will. Yes, Moon, I did give you that fic. I did send that one to you specifically because you were also asking about dismemberment. I was just surprised that I gave it to Despair Bears as well. Did I? I must have. Yes, it was Scars. So I guess I'll just put a link in the description after this stream is done, because we can do that. And then I'll link to Kaito Reads the Script as well, because that one is on AO3. Unfortunately, I looked, and Grayimperia's fic in the Momota zine is not on AO3, and this one that Moon wrote for me, Aggressively Clueless on Tumblr, is just for me. This is the only copy, and now you guys will all get to enjoy it for the first time. listen. It should maybe tell you something if I have had the conversation about the dismemberment fic more than once. You know, maybe I won't post this stream so people can read it afterwards, because I don't usually go this dark on my Instagram, or definitely not my Instagram. Occasionally on my TikTok, but like Tumblr, AO3, all bets are off. All right, let me just hydrate one more time and then we'll get going on this last one. This one doesn't have a title, but let me see. I think this one just said astronaut on the cover. Also, you guys will get a kick out of this. It was given to me with a wax seal that had moons and stars in the seal. So it was very cool to receive in person. Am I going to read a dismemberment fic? The difficult one with that one in particular is because the first half is from Kokichi's point of view. And the second half is from Kaito's point of view, so I theoretically could do it, but I don't have it printed out, so it'd be a little bit hard to read. But maybe next time, if I can catch Rev Yuri and get permission, maybe we could do it. If I could get a Kokichi cosplayer to, like, double team it with me, now that would be something. But unfortunately, there's no dismemberment in this next fic. That's so cute. Okay, I thought you were saying that to the dismemberment fic, and I was like, huh? No, to the wax seal. Okay. All right. I mean, I am certainly taking suggestions. If you find a fic that you think would be good in this kind of situation. At some point, I was thinking about going through all of Toxic Pineapple's work, because she is single-handedly keeping the Rantaro Amami tag alive and, like, queen of Momota. So she's got a wide variety of stuff out there, and I was gonna, like, hit her up, but there's just too much to go through, unfortunately. But maybe next time. So if there are any Kokichi cosplayers who are either in the Twin Cities area or... Stop it! I haven't read the dismembered fic, but maybe it is cute. It's not cute. It's horrifying, actually. But if there's any Kokichi cosplayers in either the Twin Cities area or want to hop on to Zoom, maybe. Perhaps. Maybe someday. We could do it... No, not for... I was about to say for Kokichi's birthday, but that's my birthday, too. And I got plans. I'm going to be in the woods. Toxic? I don't know what they put in the water that Toxic Pineapple drinks, but Tox is just on another fucking level. I haven't really been able to give a lot of appreciation to fic writers, you know, because my primary locations are on Instagram and on TikTok, and we get, like, fan artists and stuff on Instagram and on TikTok because it's a visual medium primarily. There aren't fic writers posting on Instagram and TikTok, so I don't get to, like, yell about them there. I get to, like, at best I can do it in Discord or on Tumblr. I've been trying to get better about that, or yelling in the AO3 comments, but there isn't as much opportunity to, like, share it out with people, you know? So I'm hoping this is an opportunity where I can just extol my love and admiration for the fic writers. Y'all are the best. And maybe you don't hear it enough, but y'all are... love and appreciate fic writers. So hello, Arcade Cat. You are just in time for the last fic that I have been stalling reading for probably the last 20 minutes, because I still gotta Hydrate or dihydrate. I'm gonna fill this up again real quick. Still stalling. All right, you're back in business. Now I gotta mess with the light again, because this is an interesting one where there are several scenes. So I might do several different, like, lighting setups. Holy shit. Okay. So, I'm trying to remember all of the settings. We'll take some pauses as we go through. You know, we'll get the lighting set up in due time, and then I can take a break to breathe. Dihydrate, I guess. Oh, okay. Mara, you bring up an interesting point. Because this is not quite podfic, because, you know, I don't have the most canon Kaito voice in the world, as much as I try to destroy it. You know. But Mari has connections, i.e. her boyfriend, does a really fantastic Kaito impression. So if anyone is interested in doing podfic, or if we can all agree on like a fic that we all just really want Kaito podfic for, that's an option. All right, let me catch up. Does my jacket have the lining? Of course it does. What do you take me for? Of course it has the lining. Hold on. I didn't safety pin it on today because I forbore and I just watched it. But yes, I did sew all of this in by hand, and even better, matching slippers with the same fabric. Oh, those are ripe. I did not wash my slippers when I washed this jacket, so second round of laundry, here we come. I think that's in character, though. Kaito being just a little stinky, little smelly. Although I do maintain he showers multiple times per day, simply because if you're coughing up that much blood onto your outfits, you're going to need to change and shower. No breathing allowed in Kaito cosplay. You're... Guess I'll die. That's what you guys want, right? That's what you guys came here to see? Guess I'll die. We're gonna do purple for both, and we're gonna futz around with it as time goes on. Fun fact, I did a couple of pictures for like Instagram for Kaito with like the sweating sprites, and I used my Homestuck body paint to get that really gray tinge. That's what it's all about. 3 fics per fic. No breathe, only. Hold on, my lights are descending through my back. I'm gonna put this in my pocket real quick. Come on. Major brow moment. So since it's Homestuck Day tomorrow, maybe I'll just go full gray for Kaito. Literally for the past 4 years, this has been like the busiest weekend for me because it goes Kaito's birthday and then Homestuck Day immediately after. can't fucking win. So, one more drink. And now this final fic, once again, does not have a title. Untitled Fic by Aggressively Clueless on Tumblr, or Phobos on YouTube. Kaito Momota had been prepared for launch for years. A moment's notice, he always roasted with a smile, was all he'd need to be ready, just as soon as everyone else was ready for him. That bit, according to him, was the real hang-up. But he didn't blame anybody for it. He, the one and only luminary of the stars, was a lot to get ready for. In the end, any accommodations at all would have been sufficient, even if the cockpit was a little cramped and he wasn't really given the option of a return trip. The needle on the altimeter gauge was taking its time, though. 100 feet, 150, 200. Couldn't that bear afford some decent damned fuel? But so long as Kaito kept his breathing under control, he could wait out the ascent. No matter what happened afterwards, whether the porthole window popped and depressurized him, whether they stirred his tanks, whether he only grazed the vacuum before promptly burning up on re-entry, he would still make it. He had to. He refused to give himself a choice. He stifled another coughing fit, clamping down on his lungs with an iron grip. It was all too familiar of a feeling, and it left the back of his throat slimy and his chest burning every time. But the worst of it passed when he was forced out of a slow, controlled breath. Those lungs didn't want to. They wanted to spring out of control and wring him out for good. A few minutes, he told himself. Probably less. Just until he broke the outermost edges of the atmosphere, and he knew he'd do it. Cruel as it was, they wouldn't half-ass an execution if they could help it. The first time the idea had occurred to him, he was witnessing the death of the anthropologist. Uncanny was the term Kaito would use. Less coupled with knack more than with valley. He and Kyo had never really been close. That had been nothing to do with easing the revulsion of the scene, of course, or to curb the rafters of smoke rolling up from that bonfire. It certainly had not helped him forget the smell of stewing meat that had begun to emanate after the screaming had finally stopped during the execution. Kaito had tried to tune it all out, and no doubt the others were trying to as well, but it was in that moment, staring through the heat haze and refusing to acknowledge that it was in that enormous cauldron there was now a corpse, that his brain cast out and reeled in an absurd thought. Are they all supposed to be related to our ultimate talents? It wasn't until that night, after the sun had long disappeared and he was sitting on the edge of his bed, with the glow-in-his-dark planet pajamas, that the full course of that thought was considered. For some, a themed execution was a bit of a stretch. There would be some artistic liberties taken, but for him, off the top of his head, he could think of a dozen or more ways for outer space itself to kill him without even trying. He said, not always, but often enough, that he'd die to go to space, and that was no exaggeration at all. But did they expect him to kill for the chance? That was what scared him all of a sudden. Not that he'd go through with it. He knew himself better than that, but would the others believe him? Or, in the midst of some deliberation amidst some trial, would it be brought up and used against him? No. He decided it wouldn't. Shuichi wouldn't point that kind of finger, and Makiro knew him better than that. That Kokichi, on the other hand. He was closing in on 1,000 feet now, and sure enough, the needle on the altimeter's gauge was waking up. Kaito tapped it a couple of times, as if that would coax it along. It didn't. Leaning back again and glancing momentarily over the other dials and controls. Probably decorative, he decided. There was no way they'd actually let him a pilot in this little bucket of parts, even in the throes of death. But he'd push a few buttons anyway, just in case. He'd make it to the stars, all right, whether those stars were ready for him or not. How long he lasted after that was of no concern. By all logic, by Shuichi's logic even, he'd lost. He'd killed, and now he was dying for it. Kaito, though, saw it a little bit differently. He reached down to his left side pocket, his hands resting over the square gem case that stashed within it. To hope his shoddy little rocket would come with a CD player was perhaps a bit much, but in truth, he didn't need it. Because so long as he knew how the tune went, he didn't consider himself wholly alone. It was that first night where he'd found that metal staircase that went up to the roof of the dorms. The dorms that had hidden it was the out-of-the-way but unlocked door, and when Kaito assumed it was an invitation, he watched the sun go down up there, kicked back, watched the moon come up. Odd, though, he remembered noticing. It wasn't the right sky that night. He'd been hearing the comings and goings of the front doors, hearing voices in twos and threes wafting up to him as the others trailed in to get ready for bed, but he must have missed the footsteps coming in behind him. And when Kaede appeared through the still open hatch, he was taken completely by surprise. "It's Kaito, right?" she said, and he made a valiant attempt to disguise the noise of surprise and startlement as Casual was clearing his throat. He looked over at her, propping himself up on his elbows so he wouldn't have to crane his neck so hard. And he beamed. "You got it in one. Couldn't forget my amazing face, could you?" Kaede smiled back, pausing halfway down through the hatch as if undecided on whether to come out or go back down. "What are you doing all the way up here on your own? Most of the others are going to bed." "What, already?" said Kaito. "But it's barely even dark out. How are we supposed to see any good stars if we go to bed early?" Kaede said nothing, but she didn't have to. Kaito made a gesture of scooting over just a little, inviting her to join him. "You want to watch too?" "Don't tell me you're tired like the others yet." "Well," said Kaede, but abandoned the hesitation and came to rest of the way out, setting herself down next to him. "All right, but just for a little while." Kaito let her get comfortable and laced his hands behind his head again, focusing somewhere near Gemini and internally chewing out over how that just didn't sit quite right. Gemini's a winter constellation. For the moment, though, he put it away. "So, have you made a best friend yet?" "I don't know about that," said Kaede, her hands clasped in her lap. "You met Shuichi, right? Whatever happened about, well, how we all got here? He and I must have been in that together since the beginning. He's in his room now, but apart from that, we've stayed pretty close. I'm hoping we'll still be friends after this all gets sorted out. We all will, I'm sure, but me and him especially. He's nice, you know, even if he doesn't want to say much yet. That's okay." She sighed and smoothed out her skirt a little and turned her eyes to Kaito. "What about you, then? The cool loner type?" "Me?" said Kaito and laughed. "I'll be best friends with every one of you by the time we're done with this place. Just you wait and see. It's the two of us up here right now, but tomorrow night, I bet I can get all the others to pile up here too. I'll even get my hands on a telescope, and then it'll really be a stargazing party. You'll come, won't you? And bring Shuichi too. And Ryoma. And Miyu. Hey, don't laugh at me. I'm serious here." "I'm not making fun of you," said Kaede, but behind her hand over the mouth she was smiling. I promise I'm not. It sounds fun is all. How about I'll write up invitations for everybody if we're still stuck here by then." "Oh, yeah. I guess if we escape before tomorrow night, well, wherever we end up, we can still have a star party, right?" "Of course," said Kaede, and that seemed to settle the matter. She sat back, staring into the sky again, and after a moment asked him, "All right, spaceman, what's your favorite star?" "What?" said Kaito, surprised. "You mean I gotta pick just one?" "Yeah, Come on, that's not fair. If I tell you that, then you'll have to tell me your favorite piano song. Just one favorite? Not so easy, is it? Well, Kaede, these K names, Kaede gave it some consideration, which turned serious, judging by the thorough chewing she was giving her lip all of a sudden. On a night like this, up here with the fresh air, she held her hands out, her fingers splayed delicately in all directions, and her eyes seemed to focus on something Kaito wasn't seeing. He looked over at her, meaning to ask, and it dawned on him. She was imagining a piano, and as her fingers began to twitch, she could imagine her playing it. Not that he could even pretend to follow along, though. She seemed to make her decision not by willing herself to play, but by listening to the imagined tune, and she nodded as at last she recognized it. She dropped her hands, and the smile she gave Kaito was so warm. I think of Chopin's Nocturne No. 6 in G minor. It's a nice one, for a night like this, don't you think? Yeah, I was totally about to say that too, said Kaito, who, at the time, was not familiar with the piece in the slightest. But, of course, Kaede would know all the good ones. He'd trust her on that. It was a good thing he did, too. She'd been dead on right. Days later, after the first round of blood had dried and the vast collection of CDs in her lab had been up for perusal, he'd given it a listen, and he felt like he'd been gifted an instantaneous understanding of her passion. There was no way to tell if she had done the recording or not, but in his mind's eye, he could see her in front of the keys, and he could only sit and listen and wonder. Is this how she hears the stars? He promised he'd take her with him someday, once he got the chance, and he kept that CD with him since then. The blood was pooling up in his lungs again, and this time there was no keeping it down. It was somewhere between coughing and retching, hard enough to make him rattle in the chest and spray merciless, glaring drops across the console before him. The altimeter was at 2,000 feet. He still had time. He had to still have time, even though his perception of it was skewing, bouncing back and forth between pain and memory. He just had to focus. Just had to. The exit soul hangar was a dismal, hollow-feeling place that smelled of diesel and hot solder. One fluorescent bar struggled over a mass of dormant machinery, but the extremities and the corners of the place were cast into shadows and long angles like ghosts. And for a dazed, incomprehensible moment, the only thing that went through Kaito's mind was that he couldn't possibly think of a worse place to die. Idling by the still-open shutter was the Exisal, humming lowly, shoving himself haphazardly onto his feet with Kokichi, his hands clamped down over his injured arm. His fingers were steeped with blood, and the arrow protruded from between them. "You idiot!" he spat. "You shit-for-brains fucking idiot!" He rounded to face Kaito, and it was as if he could channel the venom through his words and expel it by the force of his will alone. "What's wrong with you? Don't you have any idea how this ends?" "What's wrong with me?" Kaito exclaimed, but backstepped before he could help it. Off the rails was Kokichi's default state, pivoting between laughter and tears at the drop of a hat, but this was the first time, the only time, that he had ever witnessed complete, unfettered rage. Right then, even half a head shorter, he could have tackled Kaito if he'd wanted, maybe put that arrow in him too! Maybe even sink him for good with his bare hands. Not that it would matter before too much longer, anyhow. Kokichi scoffed through his teeth, maybe hiding a wince of pain, maybe just plain disgusted. "Yes, you. How stupid are you, anyway?" "Hey, I saved your skin just now. How about..." Rage dissolved instantly as Kokichi burst into lilting laughter. saved me? No, you fucking didn't! You bought me time, that's it! An hour, maybe 2, you dumbass! Did you forget? Or did you think she'd only tipped one of these damn things and you'd get off scot-free? Oh, hell. Shut up! I'm thinking. Kokichi's voice was sharp all of a sudden, but he wasn't paying Kaito any attention. His eyes wandered away, tracing over equipment and storage crates and the mech which still stood between them and the open shutter. No. I can. Yeah, I can still salvage. Maybe. He seemed to know what Kaito was thinking, and gave him a warning shake of his head without looking at him. Don't even try it. Those things are way faster than you are. Kaito knew he was right. Watching the Exo-souls take turns patrolling up and down the halls, always one at a time, but never the same one twice, had become one of his only hobbies over the past few days. But what if he did make a run for it? How far would he get? Oh, there's an idea, Kokichi muttered, an amused smile playing across the corners of his mouth. Whatever the quick thinking was going on in his head, it was wrapping up. He made his way to the shutter console, commanding it to clatter down again, and as it complied, he turned back to Kaito. His hair dangled in his face, dampened with sweat, but behind it those eyes of his were like those of a deranged animal. His smile was a wicked, twisting thing. The words that came out of it were words not only, they were just utterly devoid of sense. You're not done yet, he said distantly, seeming to register Kaito a second later. This time, he was issuing a demand. You're not done yet, I said. Get back in here. Like hell I will, Kaito stepped forward, both hands curling into fists again. Minutes ago, he had the front of that fucker's shirt in his grasp, and his feet were hanging a solid inch off the floor, and he'd do it again, provided the bad arm would let him. You think I'm going to listen to you now after everything you... Yeah, I do, said Kokichi, with an abrupt calmness of his entirely personality was determined by a coin toss. The smile was still there, but the malice in it had faded. Rather, it looked like it had, but Kaito knew better. You'll listen, Kokichi went on, hiding almost too well the calculated bluntness with which he spoke. She's fishing out the antitoxin to whatever the fuck this is right now, I bet. Soon as she comes back with it, you'll want to be her best friend. And he was right, of course. Kaito stepped back, already feeling the knot in his gut creep an inch higher. Whatever it was, if it had been selected by hand, it promised to be horrible, gut-wrenching, agonizing. No, he didn't want to watch anyone, that bastard included, reluctantly, to succumb to it, much less experience it for himself. And, shit, what kind of trial would that be, if the two of them dropped like flies because of her? No, Kaito wouldn't stand for it. You son of a bitch, he growled, but he already knew where this was going to go. Especially after the failed stunt with the crossbows. There was no way Kokichi would let him out of his sights again. He'd blown his only chance. All he could hope for now was to buy enough time for the others to get it sorted out. Shuichi could do that, couldn't he? He was a good sorter-outer in Kaito's eyes and had been from the start. Kokichi only smiled, trailing after him, although he was a beat slower. Had it gotten so far into his system already? Kaito had to wonder, and shouldered the bathroom door closed behind them. One thing, though, he said, leaning into the door a little. You gotta do me a favor. Fuck right off. Kaito tried to scoff, but his energy wasn't in it. He was used to the burning in his chest coming and going, but the turning gears felt in his gut made him want to double over. That, the cold sweat that was starting to seep beneath his shirt and across his forehead took his estimate down from an hour and a half to half that, at most. Whether or not Kokichi was really feeling it yet, he wasn't letting it on. He still had his hand over his arm, but his face betrayed nothing. It was times like this that he almost seemed human. I'm serious here. anything you can take or leave, but this one thing I'm serious about. Call it a dare, if you want. A dare, Kaito said flatly, leaning more heavily against the tiled wall by the window and slowly beginning to sink to a stabler position on his knees. I don't owe you shit. Sure you do, said Kokichi. Or at least you will. You hear that? Was I right or what? When Kokichi fell silent, Kaito heard them. Darting footsteps coming up the hall. One guess whose. And he pushed himself up again, biting back the urge to vomit. Maybe he could still be all right. Maybe. But he didn't like that patient little smile that Kokichi was wearing all of a sudden. Kaito? The voice that came through the window was hers all right, and Kaito scrounged up the best face he could for her. Oh, hey, Maki roll. Miss me that bad, huh? But the bravado couldn't linger. Something in him felt as if it would burst, and he doubled over again, tasting the bile rising at the corners of his throat and settling in. No, don't. You're gonna be okay, I swear. I brought this. Her hand appeared in the square window frame, clutching a glass bottle wrapped in a faded paper label. Just drink the whole thing. There's only enough for me, Kokichi said, swinging himself off the side of the door and plucking the bottle out of her hand with startling precision. He was faking, Kaito was sure. He'd been all but zoned out moments ago, or, more likely, that part had been a lie, but of course he swooped in right on cue to save himself. And Kaito wanted, more than anything, to punch his lights right out for it. Maki roll, you shouldn't have. It's not even my birthday. That grin was wicked now, and Kokichi sent the bottle cap flying with a flick of his thumb. Now, I have to get you something for yours. Not that you'll live that long. Give that back, said Maki with a quiet desperation. You can't. No, give it back. Give it back or you'll what? Kokichi exclaimed, taking a step closer. It wasn't merely a question. He was challenging her, daring her to try to get him now. The hand that came through the window lashed out, making a swipe at Kokichi's face and missing him by an inch. Her fingers were like claws, groping the air and catching nothing. She thrust her shoulder through to get at him, brushing against his neckerchief before he had the chance to step back, but she couldn't get a hold of him. Behind the window, she was yelling now, shrieking like an attack dog on the wrong side of a chain-link fence. I'll get you! I'll fucking kill you! I'll tear you apart! I'll wring your goddamn neck! Aw, you promise? Said Kokichi, who served only to goad her on. Go on, wring that goddamn neck of mine. Do it. Come on, do it! But really, no, I don't think so. If you do that, even if you could manage to get it from out there, then this, he held up the bottle, and Kaito made a grab for it a second too late. Kokichi downed its contents in 2 enormous gulps. Setting it down again on the counter by the sink behind him. As soon as he'd done it, Maki froze up in horror, her mouth hanging slack. No doubt that was what he'd really wanted to see. This would have all gone to waste. Wouldn't want that, would we? Said Kokichi. He cocked his head sharply to one side. So I guess I should say thanks, Maki roll. You really know how to come in clutch, don't you? Maki said nothing. From where he was, half crumpled on the floor, Kaito saw her withdraw her hand from the window. Hey. He tried, but all that came out was a hoarse whisper. Forcing the breath out, he tried again. Maki, it's okay. Don't worry about me. Kaito pushed himself up, even though he was sure his knees would go out from under him if he kept his weight on them. But he had to see her, even this was the last chance he ever got. I can still take him. You can't. Not like that, Maki whispered. Like hell I will! Kaito stepped forward. Oh. Kaito shook his head slowly. But even that slight movement was enough to bring a dizzying wave of nausea. You never know. Besides, you remember what they said at the beginning. It takes 3 to find a body. And you know where I'll be. You have time. Maki's face paled. How can you say that? You're going to die because of me. Listen, go find Shuichi. He'll help you figure it out, said Kaito, and winced as the knot in his stomach cinched tighter still. Maybe, once the rest of you guys end this, he'll get to be your sidekick instead. No, I mean it. You better be good to him. Don't say that, said Maki desperately. Don't. I'll find something. Anything. Kaito sighed. We both know how this one's gonna end, Maki roll. You can't go and get yourself all upset because of me. Maki fell silent, staring at him with streams of tears rolling down her face. In truth, it broke Kaito's heart to see it, but if he didn't put on a brave face, who would? At last, her gaze fell and she hung her head. I can't, she mumbled, and both shoulders hitched as her breath caught in a shuddering sob. I can't take this. I'm going to get you out of here. And she took off before Kaito could say another word. He called after her, of course. Maki roll! Maki roll, please! Come on! Even though the shouting only agitated his lungs further and sent him into one of the worst coughing fits he'd ever had. That was the point he blacked out. He must have. Or at least gone dizzy for a few good minutes there. The next thing he remembered was Kokichi standing over him, his face entirely blank. In his hand was the spent bottle of antidote. One of the rocket engines sputtered abruptly, and an instant panic shook Kaito like a lightning bolt through his thoughts. Whew. Jesus Christ. He couldn't afford to zone out, he told himself, smearing the blood off of his chin with the back of his hand. What was he thinking? Dying was no excuse to miss this. He just had to hold on a little longer, just a little. Even though he could feel his brain start to go a little fuzzy around the edges, he could do it, so long as he could breathe. But his lungs demanded otherwise, and he coughed up yet another round of blood with a hard, hacking sputter, spraying the little round porthole window in front of him. His mind spun with words for a moment, dictated only by the panic as he reached to swipe it away. No, he had to know if he made it. He couldn't quit yet. He couldn't. He had to know. The slide of his sleeve had done worse against the glass, leaving him a somewhat blood-tinted ring around the edges. Through the fading atmosphere, he could see the first few stars begin to twinkle, and his mind ground to a momentary halt as he watched them. Oh, he was close. So close. If he could just hold on to those stars. If he could just breathe. Hey, easy. Breathe shallow, or you'll make it worse. Kokichi had buckled, one hand still trailing down the side of the control panel. Whether he'd managed to slam both buttons simultaneously or not, Kaito couldn't say. All he knew for certain was that the press had stopped, and he knew they were almost out of time. Kokichi tried to pull himself up, but he didn't have enough left. His breath hissed in and out, rank and painful grasps, and when Kaito put a hand on his shoulder, he could feel him trembling. I can't. It's okay. I got you, Kaito said quietly, knowing more than it would make him flinch. He took Kokichi's good arm, slung it around his shoulder, and hefted him up. The first time, he kept his feet under him, but now he was almost dead weight. Almost there. Just focus on breathing, okay? Easy. You gotta breathe shallow or you'll make it worse. Trust me. I've been doing this for a while. Just go easy. All right? The slight movement of his head against Kaito's shoulder must have been a weak attempt at a nod, but he said nothing. The last step, the one that was an extra 3 inches for no apparent sensible reason, almost threw both of them down. Kaito regained it, pausing momentarily to check to make sure he could keep his balance, and to make sure he could keep what was left of Kokichi's, and all but carried him to the side of the pause press. Kaito set him down, felt him sway a little, and kept a hand on him. Take my... Even now, he was still trying to play boss, but Kaito let it happen. He slid Kokichi's shirt off, going easy on the bad arm when he winced, and tossed that and the neckerchief aside. Both were drenched in a sickly, clammy sweat. Under, his skin had gone paper white. Cold, Kokichi murmured, and seemingly without meaning he leaned into Kaito's hand. Kaito almost gave up there and then. Seeing Kokichi like this, all but laid bare with a foot in his own grave, he was no mastermind. He was pathetic. That was it. How could he have thought he could go through with a plan like this? How could he have agreed to it, knowing what it would entail? How could he go back on his promise to not become a murderer, even when it was Kokichi's life on the line? Can I ask you something? Said Kokichi faintly, leaning almost entirely on Kaito's arm now. And he swallowed hard, even though there was no doubt it hurt. Like what? Said Kaito, realizing only a moment later that it was only because he was dragging his own feet. Avoiding anything to go up those steps and press the big red button on the console. Kokichi hummed his words vaguely, his eyes wandering to Kaito's face, only with a great amount of effort. A favor, he said. You gotta promise me something. Kokichi grabbed the side of Kaito's sleeve, grasping with an unexpected force. You gotta. All the others got one. Kaito sighed slowly and nodded. You're right. Sure am, Kokichi warbled, and Kaito didn't think he had enough wit left to fake the little half smile that was playing across the face. Remember earlier when I said I'd dare you? Was that meant to be consistent? Kaito wondered. If it was, did that mean it was serious? Or was this meant to be one last prank? I remember. You didn't say what the dare was, though. Well, I'm saying it, said Kokichi, with as much force as he could muster. The hand on Kaito's sleeve loosened somewhat with the effort, and he left it there only because it was half resting to begin with. I dare you to lie. What? The grin widened a degree in amusement. To Shuichi, he said, after taking a deep breath, as deep as he could. Just once. For me. But I thought all of this was supposed to be... Kaito shook his head. Oh, man, he just... And Kokichi meant to laugh, but for all that happened was a stuttering, coughing rush of air. No. Stupid! All of this is me. I want you to lie. Kaito knew what he meant. Somehow, he couldn't really have expected anything different, and yet he couldn't do it. To lie was one thing, but to Shuichi? You gotta. You gotta. Kokichi pressed, dipping his head in an effort to ease the dizziness. It didn't help that he was almost leaned too far, putting a hand onto the smooth metal to keep him mostly upright. Through his teeth, the words didn't seem to come out any easier, but he kept them coming anyway. You really gotta make him eat it. Just once. Let him be wrong just once. I don't care what you tell him. I can't, said Kaito. Nothing gets past him. You know that as well as I do. But Kokichi was stubborn. Even when he was running out of breaths to take, he used every one of them to push. Swear it. Promise me. Please. At last, with no idea at all how he could hope to follow through, Kaito gave in. All right. I promise. It was as if Kokichi's entire body loosened at once. His shoulders fell back, his head dipped an extra degree. His arms dangled limply, one on the metal and the other on his lap. For a moment, Kaito almost thought he died on the spot, but he nodded lightly. Thank you, he whispered, and it was almost imperceptible. I think I'm going to lie down now. Even then, Kaito had to help him settle. He moved with a delicate detachment, as if his limbs were made of fine china, and dropping them too hard would break them. He was trying to get comfortable, but there was no such thing for him anymore. And his face twisted up in pain when Kaito had tried to coax him onto his back. He kept his hand on Kokichi's shoulder in case he'd try and shift over if he let go, but once he was lying flat, he didn't have anything left. His breath was barely there, and the eyes that fixed on Kaito's one last time had taken a glossy shade. And as Kaito stood back at last, he understood it all. He had Kokichi's book, he had his instructions, his lines, he had Kokichi's plans, he had all of it. He could do it. He had to. He could win on Kokichi's behalf, or he could lose on his own terms. And as he stood there for a full 12 minutes before crying himself out and going up to the steps to reactivate the press and draw the scene of an utter bloodbath, he knew what his lie was going to be. He was the only one that would know. He had to be the only one. He was. Sure enough, Shuichi cut through every step of Kokichi's bullshit. This time around, there was more than enough of it. But to the ultimate detective, this was no deterrent at all. He sliced it down piecemeal, setting it all out and organizing it into little boxes and putting it on display. He was good at it. The best, even. The whole stack of lines and running around didn't stand a chance. And Kaito meant it wholeheartedly when he said he was proud of them all for getting through it. And he meant it wholeheartedly when he said, chin up, and don't you sit and cry because I'm gone. Who knows, he said. Maybe the next time you see a shooting star, it'll be me. That's right. Chins up. The altimeter was whirling in pointless circles now, and he had tilted his head back as the last trace of solid gravity left him. He'd made it. He'd won after all. They all did, a little, in their own way. Kokichi, even Maki Roll had gotten a taste, even if she could never know it. But it was the thought that counted, in the end. Kaito looked out as the sky bared itself before him. Finally, he allowed himself to become lost in the expanse, thinking of his friends, thinking of how strongly he believed in all of them, thinking of how Chopin and how much beauty a single universe could contain. And his thoughts were, he couldn't imagine a better place to die. And scene, because I am so thirsty after that one. And it all ends, Kaito pushes the button, and nothing happens, and Kokichi shoots up and says, "It's a lie!" And confetti falls down, and it's a prank, and everyone lives. Hooray! You guys were busy in this one. Hold up. Let me catch up. I'm going back and I'm reading the stuff about Kaito Homestuck. We could do Kaito with 2 O's and then he'd have a troll name. I'm very partial to Knight of Heart Kaito, and I think a lot of people agree with me. Spectra went through and did a Knight of Heart Kaito. I'm like going back and like getting the like live stream of like as the fic went on, and just Kaito and Kaede, they deserve to be friends. They like two sunshine people, they would have been unstoppable. Moon, I appreciate you just laughing in the comments. You get it. Yeah. Alright, all caught up. Kokyuji's best prank yet, for real. He never died! Hooray! I gotta like give myself a second to not say any words, because that was a lot of words I just read, by the way. I should do like a final word count. I'm actually a little lightheaded. Ooh, forgot to breathe there. Yeah. You fucking get it. Kaito smiling through the pain. Literally, this was handed to me, and I told them in person, I was like, if I hadn't literally just gotten done crying on the way to the convention, there would be tears streaming down my face right now, because there's something about that. Because what got me about Kaito's arc specifically is it's such a good... Yeah, I'm taking off the jacket. We're going XSL hanger style over here. The thing that gets me about Kaito's arc is it's a full character arc. He achieves his main goal, which is something you don't get very often in Danganronpa, because that's the tragedy of it, is like these are all like high schoolers and young adults, and they have these huge dreams because they're all ultimates, and they don't, like, most of them don't get to realize that, either because they die or because they get released into like a world that's pretty much ended. Mostly they die. So there was something very, very bittersweet about Kaito's execution. Like, not only in the fact that it was like Danganronpa itself coming full circle, reusing Headmaster Jin Kirigiri's execution, but just the fact that he did get to go to space. He was so worried throughout the game that he was going to die before he got to go to space, and at the very last minute he achieves it, despite everything. And he did it with a smile on his face. That's what really got me. Like, you see him, he's laying on the floor, dead, but he's smiling because he did it. He saved his, like, sidekicks, and he went to space, and it was just... oh! Kaito's character arc is something that can be so, so personal. Like, there are definitely some bones I have to pick with it, but it's so interesting to me to see how deliberately Kodaka planned out his character. Because, like, once you see the circular nature of Danganronpa and, like, how Kodaka intended for this to be the last Danganronpa game, seeing him reuse the execution from the very first game, like, at that point you kind of know Kaito's slated to die during that trial, and he always was. So just knowing throughout the entire game Kodaka intended to get him to that point. I should count up how many words Grayimperia's fic has, and then we can get a full count of how many words you guys just endured. Actually, I wonder if I can get captions on this, because unfortunately I wasn't able to figure out how to do live captions. Export that, and then do a word count of how many words I've said during this stream. That would be kind of funny, I think. You're so right, though. Kaito's story is so fulfilling in such a tragic way. Like, it is very much the opposite of Kaede's dream, where, like, she fully intended to kill the mastermind and get everyone out of there, and she fails miserably and dies knowing she failed. But Kaito gets to die knowing he, in a way, succeeded. Ah! Ah! I don't know, man. Ah, writers, you are such a gift. You're so correct. There's not much more I can say beyond that. I just love getting to explore stuff like this. Mm-hmm. Ooh, yeah, you're so right. Kaito was literally doomed by the narrative. I want to meet his voice actor, Kyle Hebert, so bad, and just like ask him how much of the Kamina coding was deliberate. Since he voiced both Kamina and Kaito, like how much of that went into the decision of casting him as Kaito, or conversely, how many references they added in once he was cast as Kaito, you know? Maybe a little bit of both. I've seen people joke that Kaito is actually based off of, I think it was Joey Wheeler from Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know. Oh, you're Natty! Oh! I recognize your username on TikTok, but I didn't know that was you! Oh! Oh! The pieces, they're connecting. I did watch the entirety of Gurren Lagann after I learned like how many parallels Kaito and Kamina had. I did sit through the entirety of Gurren Lagann, and obviously there was a certain point at which I wanted to quit watching, but I powered through and it was very good. I'm not entirely sold on starting Yu-Gi-Oh! Though. I'm not sold on that one. Maybe someday. Oh, man. Well, this went on for 2 hours. That's a lot of fic. I should probably, sign off because this whole thing is going to be posted to YouTube afterwards, so you'll be able to rewatch it if you'd like. Watch an anime just for Kaito, that's very bees. You're correct. You come here and you say this on Kaito's birthday. But yeah. Anyway, this stream is going to be saved on my YouTube afterwards. Hopefully I can get some captions on it. Hopefully I can split up some, chapters and we can have 3 separate fics. So probably like just introduction, fic number 1, discussion, fic number 2, discussion, fic number 3, discussion. We can keep discussing. This can be like a little book club. That'd be kind of interesting, doing like a fanfic book club. That's pretty much what we do on Tumblr anyway. But yeah, that's all I have. I said 3 fics and I read 3 fics. And if you want more, we'll have to find some more fics to read. I'm so glad so many of you guys could show up. This was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, and I'm glad you guys also had fun. Because that's what fandom is. It's about collectively having fun and being silly and creating. That's all I really have to say. But yeah, once again, if I haven't said it enough, Writers, I love and adore you. Artists, if you're watching this, I love and adore you. Cosplayers, I love and adore you. Role players, just anything under the sun for like fandom activities. Moon, don't you dare. I could read the one that you posted today. Was that? I'm trying to remember. I better not do that to myself. I'm gonna get so dehydrated. But yeah. Maybe we'll plan another one of these. We'll see. I don't know when. But, man. I don't know, man. I'm so torn because, like, I could read more. But we could save it till next time. Yeah, I'm gonna call it here. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining. I'm so glad you had a good time here, and see you when I see you. Maybe see you next time.